Pioneers for Canada: A Call for Action. The following is a proposal to start a pilot pioneer settlement in Canada for refugees. It is argued that Canada can benefit from pioneers in much the same way it has benefited from pioneers in the past, provided that homesteading laws of the past are adapted for the present modern situation. Careful selection of refugees to guarantee availability of skills, cooperative self-sufficient environment, modern materials and machinery, friendly neighbors, and existing infrastructure such as railway lines and roads make homesteading much easier and less dangerous than what it was in the past. The growing tourist industry and the rich forestry and mineral resources of unsettled lands in the north allow homesteaders a niche market that can be exploited. It is not a question of whether it be profitable, but rather if it can be self-sustainable and offer refugees and their children a dignified free life that we all deserve. Canadians are seen not willing to move to remote regions and face the hardships of living and trying to make a profit in remote unsettled lands. Many refugees, on the other hand, would be thankful to be given a chance to do just that. Refugees make the best pioneers. Refugees turned into modern-day pioneers to settle and open up northern Canada for tourists can offer Canada a lot more than just international prestige. The proposal covers the concept and highlights the international cooperation needed between EU countries, Switzerland, and Canada to implement such a project. A location is proposed as well as the needed facilities, skills, and tools, the needed financing and legislation, statistics and arguments for the concept, scenarios of future pioneer settlements, and other suitable locations if the pilot project is successful. Finally, a proposal is discussed to fund a joint university program to convince the politicians to implement such a project. A call for action. Whenever we cannot turn our eyes away from masses of children and women who are dying as a result of natural catastrophes, starvation, war, and persecution, and are forced to watch them die a slow and painful death, then we react en masse to save them. And once they are saved, then we feel good and we forget about them. That has been our reaction to the thousands of refugees that we see on crowded, poor-equipped boats landing on the shores of Europe. There is a lack of will to find immediate solutions to help these refugees help themselves to obtain the dignity and freedom they are risking their lives to find for themselves and for their children. The reasons for this lack of will to act responsibly and humanely are too many. Too many people believe that the refugees are a threat to their culture, their jobs, and their space by thinking of the refugees as lazy criminals. Too many people are attracted to news of catastrophes rather than success stories. Too many people favor short-term gain at the expense of long-term pain. Too many religious people believe that human sufferings have reasons beyond our control. Too many universities partake in studies only when they are externally funded. Too many politicians favor freedom of corporations to make profits over freedom of normal people to live dignified lives. After having tolerated and supported for decades brutal regimes in the name of freedom, we are now faced with the consequence of having to take responsibility to support citizens of these regimes who are risking their lives to escape from their repressive governments to look for a life of dignity and freedom. After having raped nature in the name of technology, tinkered with its genes in the name of feeding the hungry, used fields to grow fuel for machines instead of food for people, and dammed rivers to generate electricity instead of to irrigate crops, we are now faced with the consequence of having to take responsibility to support people fleeing starvation. A repeating wave of migration and immigration would be a win-win situation for many countries as well as for all refugees, just as the preceding wave of migration 100 to 300 years ago was. The world would greatly benefit if refugees were encouraged and helped to immigrate and settle and open up these productive yet laid to waste lands. Refugee has a negative connotation, while pioneer has a positive connotation. Refugees make the very best pioneers. The refugees that turned into pioneers in Canada in the past faced many dangers and hardships that the refugees turned pioneers at present would no longer face. In the past, homesteads were far from roads and railways and surrounded by hostile neighbors. Now they would be built next to them. In the past, homesteaders had to compete for the best lands to cultivate. Now they would cooperate to exploit its timbers and minerals. In the past, pioneers had to sell their products to customers far away. Now they have to provide services to arriving tourists. With modern materials, tools, machinery, communication, transportation, and support facilities readily available, life of the modern pioneer is no longer as hard and dangerous as it was in the past. Project for a pilot pioneer settlement. Aim: to settle, develop, and exploit lands in the northern parts of Canada that are near populated areas suitable and attractive for the tourist industry. Participants: any young and able families or singles with a pioneering spirit who are willing to live a self-sufficient communal life for a few years until their community is established. Aid: travel costs and training costs for refugees are subsidized and paid work is offered to allow the buying of tools and materials for the settlement. Work offered: building infrastructure for the community, building homesteads for the pioneers, building industry facilities such as lumberyard and greenhouses for the community, building tourist facilities such as trails, lodges, restaurants, and gas stations, working and providing services to local communities. Contract: after a certain time period, if pioneers have shown that they have worked their homestead with the parcel of land and have applied and received Canadian citizenship, they are given a deed to that land. It is not a question if modern pioneers are able to compete in the markets and be profitable from the land they settle on, but rather if they can survive on it and lead happy, dignified, and free lives on it.